listening in to that conversation is the EFF Member of Parliament, Sinawo Tambo, who also joins us now to give us their reaction to this. Mr. Tambo, good evening to you and thank you for your time. What's the EFF's view of Ms. Njabini and the allegations against her?
Thank you, Toli. I think it's damning, and it's been quite a while that Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni has been surviving on the fact that she's a lieutenant of Cyril Ramaphosa, who has been at the front line of ensuring successive presidencies for him internally in the ANC and subsequently leading the state of South Africa. So we're absolutely not surprised, and we've at least illustrated that in our statement that this is not the first time that she's caught up in allegations of corruption, that there have been calls for her to be removed. And yet Cyril Ramaphosa has done nothing about that. And it's testament to the fact that the so-called claims of renewal within the ANC and the so-called cleaning up of government by Cyril Ramaphosa is nothing but a lip service. I mean, clearly she is part of what we characterize as the earliest problems that characterize local government in South Africa, where municipal managers and officials are the law unto themselves. The company which she granted the contracts to conduct those accounting services missed the time to bid in time, yet got rewarded. It got their work expanded, which resulted in it ballooning from 500,000 to 2.3 million. And she's been at the center of that. And that is what characterizes local government today, almost 10 years later. And she's part of behavior that should be uprooted at local government, including the fact that we continue to rely on consultants. So Ntshavheni must be removed. She must, if she had any sort of conscience within her, she'd step aside willingly, because she currently sits as a minister in the presidency in charge of the State Security Agency, in charge of a war chest, which is what has been described as a war chest in the past in terms of the slush fund of the SSA. And with these allegations, she doesn't have the integrity to occupy those positions.
What steps is the EFF willing to follow if, let's say, the president does take his time? Because I think he is a man who, as he likes to put it, apply his mind to a matter or be given space, I think is usually the wording around it. You would have seen previously two ministers swapping roles instead of a minister being told to leave office. And I'm talking here about Thembi Simelane, when allegations of a similar nature started swirling around her. What is it that the EFF thinks it can do in order to have people who are accused of corruption dealt with and dealt with properly?
Look, I think the first thing we need to do is to review the appointing powers of the President of South Africa in terms of how he has so much power to appoint people who head investigative and legal institutions in South Africa. He has the basically unilateral powers to appoint the public protector, practically unilateral powers to appoint the judge of the Constitutional Court, practically unilateral powers to appoint the head of the National Prosecuting Authority. And I think this is part and parcel of the reason why those who are his allies in the ANC feel so emboldened in committing acts of corruption, and yet they will not be removed because they are lieutenants of someone who appoints everyone who's supposed to hold everyone accountable and investigate them as law enforcement agencies. So the Limpopo High Court has already described this tender awarding process by Khumbudzo Ntshavheni as something that is devastating and repugnant. And they're the ones who referred this to the Hawks, and the Hawks have done the investigations now, which we think was too lengthy, over 4 years, and handed it over to the NPA. So I think something that we're going to do now is observe keenly whether the NPA is going to refuse to prosecute, whether they're going to prosecute, and then take it further and possibly explore a process of private prosecution, because it seems like people like Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, Stella Bene Abrahams, Gwede Mantashe, are immune to law enforcement agencies in South Africa, whether they are investigated by institutions such as the State of Capture Report, whether they are found guilty by courts of law, whether they're implicated by forensic reports or Auditor General reports. Nothing ever happens to them, and they are promoted or shifted around, as you're saying. It happened with Thembi, Nkadibe, or similar, and rather. So we're going to observe the process of the NPA, whether they're going to prosecute, and then take the necessary steps moving forward. But people of South Africa must observe keenly that those who are loyal or regarded as loyal lieutenants of Cyril Ramaphosa are immune from scrutiny and immune from law enforcement agencies and repercussions for corrupt acts.
Would you advocate for those same repercussions on Thembi Simelane, the person that we have just spoken about?
Look, if Thembi Simelane is guilty of corrupt actions, absolutely. I mean, the EFF was the first call, actually, for her to step down when the allegations were revealed against her, and she was implicated in that extracting of money from VBS to purchase a restaurant and all other sorts of nefarious things. But of course, it has been revealed that there are other intentions within the NPA, within the Justice Department, to try to gain access to Zondo Commission evidence and recordings in a manner that is ad hoc, which is a sort of gung-ho, where they just want free-for-all access, where they get access to sensitive information without specifying what they want that evidence and information for. There's been those appointments of Cheskalton and Pretorius within the Justice Department, within the NPA, which the Justice Department has raised red flags about reportedly. So there's those nuances around Thembi Simelane, but of course, we've called for her to step aside a long time ago. So we're not allies with anyone. We're not interested in anyone who's been accused of corruption being preserved because of any reason or other. But there must also be an appreciation of instances where we can see that there's an attempt to get access to Justice Department records for nefarious purposes, and that is what we suspect in her relation as well. But all of them are implicated in one way or another in corruption allegations, and their entire cabinet is rotten. And there's nothing that Cyril Ramaphosa can do or make false promises of, as you've said, that now is in Davos, that he can attract investor confidence while he keeps on retaining the corrupt within his cabinet.
Sinawo Tambo, an EFF member of Parliament. Thank you very much for your time.